Okay, hopefully everyone's found their way into the session who wants to. I'm sure maybe a few more joining us, but we'll go ahead and get started. Welcome to the fourth session of the second day of our MS4 forum. So we're highlighting case studies here. You are in the case study for the prison basin retrofit. So we'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. So I'm sure you've heard it already a couple of times today, but we'll hopefully condense it a bit, but briefly say that you all know by now that the presentations and information offered as part of this MS4 forum are the views and experiences of the organizations presenting. The EPA and Pennsylvania DEP do not endorse any one approach or funding strategy. The views and the opinions expressed by the speakers and the speakers' organizations are their own and do not reflect those of the EPA or Pennsylvania DEP. Any mention of commercial enterprise, product, or publication does not indicate an EPA or Pennsylvania DEP endorsement. And also want to thank our speakers today and all of you for participating. So we're grateful that you've taken the time out of your day to join us. We put this event together to focus on the permittees' experiences as you all work to meet the conditions of the Pennsylvania MS4 permit. So we appreciate all of our presenters have volunteered their time to share this information in hopes of presenting a learning opportunity for their fellow permittees and local decision makers. So we appreciate Lindsay and Andrew taking their time out today to tell us about the prison basin retrofit. So I'll let you introduce yourselves and get into your presentation. So take it away.
Great, thank you for joining us. I am Lindsay Garner. I am a senior planner with the York County Planning Commission, and I was part of this stormwater BMP project. Were we going to play the video? We don't have to, but we can.
Yeah, you can go ahead right now if you want.
Okay. I don't know what you're seeing, but this isn't quite the video we had sent in. So how about we just forget about the video and go on with the presentation?
Okay.
Is that all right? Yeah, that
that's
seemed
fine.
to be coming through very well.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure how we mixed up the presentations, but yes, if you'd like to go ahead with your presentation.
Great.
Oh, was that not the one? That was the one we have from you guys.
It was our video, but it wasn't playing correctly at all.
Okay.
It was just playing the first two slides over and over again.
Oh, huh.
Oh, it looked good on my end.
On mine,
Oh.
yeah. It was good on
maybe it was your connection. So
sorry about
you
that.
can end it if you want, whatever
it's
you want.
an awesome video. Can you play it again?
Sure. Yeah.
Lindsay worked so hard on it.
Okay, here we go.
Lindsay, you need more bandwidth.
Do you want me to start it from the beginning or where we were?
Yeah, start it over.
Okay, hold on one second.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on one second.
I like the music too. The music was getting me going.
Sorry, it may have deleted it, so let me just get it pulled back up.
I'm sorry for stopping it. Yeah,
that's okay. Hold on one second.
Compromised today.
Okay, hold on one second. Sorry, I had it all geared up before. Now I'm just having to go back and grab it.
No worries. I'll introduce myself. Andrew Birmingham. I work at JMT, Johnson, Merman, and Thompson. I was the project manager for the consultant for the design, permitting, and construction administration for the contract with under contract with the Planning Commission, working with Lindsay, and as well as the County of York. So thanks for everybody for showing up today.
Okay, let me get the video real quick. Can everyone see the first part of it?
No,
Okay,
no,
hold on.
Not yet.
I still see Andrew and
Okay,
Lindsay.
hold on 1 second, 1 second. All right, hold on, here we go. Should be good now.
Yep, I see it.
Got it.
Okay, you guys can take it away.
All right, thank you.
Sure.
I'll share my screen now.
All right, thank you so much. Yeah, sorry, I was supposed to be the only one at home. Gotta love when a kid gets quarantined and they are now doing school at home. So we're sharing. So anyway, thank you all for being here. We're going to talk about our BMP Basin Retrofit project that you just saw a video on. First of all, show of hands of anyone who saw Pam's presentation earlier regarding the regional Chesapeake Bay pollutant reduction plan. I have a little bit of overlap here. All right, so I see a few hands. I'm not going to go into much detail. Hers is about our current Chesapeake Bay pollutant reduction plan, and this project we did in our first CBPRP. So a little bit about York County. We have 4 main watersheds and 12 subwatersheds, all except for this very little part down here at the bottom of the gunpowder flow into the Susquehanna. Go to the next slide. As you can see here by the little red squiggles, those are our impaired streams. And then there are a few with some TMDLs that were a little bit more and had to specifically look at it. So looking at that, we'll go to the next slide. And our urbanized area, and all of our municipalities that had to have an MS4 permit and were required to do a Chesapeake Bay pollutant reduction plan, we decided to do a regional plan. If you go to the next slide, with our regional CBPRP for the first one, there were 43 MS4 municipalities, and the county was also had a permit and was required to do a CBPRP. So most of those municipalities participated in the CBPRP, and the county was looking at ways that we could contribute positively to reduce our reduction. Next slide. We had seven properties that were located in MS4, or we owned properties in 7 of the municipalities that were participating in the CBPRP. The reason for our MS4 permit, we had some outfalls, and the only population we really had was the prison. So we formed a committee to help with our MS4 permit, all of our MCMs, and we worked together with our facilities management and their staff. It was the YCPC, we had the county engineer involved, and our most significant place where we owned land and had basins and outfalls was the prison. So our prison staff was also involved in our committee. So yeah, we looked at where we can make a difference, and next slide, we decided it was the prison. This is, there were 2 basins here. So this is our back basin. And what it looked like before, it was just a flat grass mowed detention basin, and there were 2 low flow channels in there. So basically when it rained, a small storm, just all the rain went straight down those low flow channels and were discharged into a swale, into a stream. So the next basin I saw on the prison property. The next basin.
It should be there. You might be
There
lagging.
we go. I think I am. This is our front basin. Again, there were no, it's just a mowed basin. There weren't any low flow channels here, but all the water was just collected and out into our next, into our swale, which will be shown on the next slide here.
I just noticed that cameo appearance by John Seitz there on the side of the picture.
Yes. So yeah, Seitz was on our committee. He's with the York County Planning Commission. If you've never had a chance to meet him, he's quite the character and very knowledgeable. Lots of great stories. But the picture on the right shows the swale that the stormwater was coming into. And then at the end of that swale is that stream. I think it's a warm water fishery designated stream. And so our goal, and the picture on the left was the back swale that was actually leading into the first basin. So our goal as the Planning Commission, next slide here, was to hopefully eliminate the need for our MS4 permits, would be the ultimate goal. If we could reduce or eliminate those discharge points, or at the least be proactive and eliminating some stormwater and pollutants that are going into our streams. So here's the timeline. It's a pretty lengthy process. In 2014, we had the CBPRPs. That's when we adopted it. 2015, the next year, we applied for the DEP Local Stormwater BMP Implementation Grant. The next year, the grants were awarded. And fun little fact, it was the awardees were talked about at the prison. So that was kind of fun. The next year is when we had our request for our professional engineering services, and that's where we selected BIRM and JMT. And the year after that is when the bid for construction went out, and the year after that is when the actual construction of the BMPs occurred. So now I'm going to send it over to BIRM, and he's going to talk about the project itself.
Sure. Thanks, Lindsay. So that was a little rendering that we had used and that JMT prepared for Lindsay and the Planning Commission as part of her outreach presentations. So as you can see in this photo, we went when we did the retrofits. Obviously, removing the pilot channels was one of the key factors in the project approach to increase the residence time, lengthen that flow path within each of the basins, but also to create some more native plantings and create some additional capability for the basin for evapotranspiration and water quality treatment, which were really the driving factors. And I'll get into that a little bit more here as I go through my part of the presentation. So just, I know Lindsay kind of talked about York County, but just a little bit more zoomed in location of where the prison is located in York County. If this is Interstate 83 that comes around the east side of York, I don't know if you all can see my cursor on the screen, but the prison is just east on Market Street, East York. So we are in Springettsbury Township is where the prison is located. And it's a pretty large campus that the county owns that actually goes all the way over to Pleasant Acres and where the old the York County nursing home once was. So it's a big campus, Springettsbury Township. The areas of retrofit that were included in the project as we got started, I think there was a little bit of a shift from the grant application. Once we got on site and started doing some research, doing some field investigations and assessments, we really landed on these 4 areas, which Lindsay had already introduced at the beginning of the presentation. But area 1, the front basin, is this area at the north side of the prison property. It was a pretty long triangular shaped basin, strictly detention only, no water quality treatment. I believe the construction of this was sometime in the late 90s, early 2000s. It might have been expanded as well. And there was a single overflow structure that discharged past the cemetery downstream. There's a cemetery here, which was a neat site characteristic, but also down in here to area 3. So area 1 discharges to area 3, and then it comes into the unnamed tributary to Kreitz Creek, which Lindsay already mentioned, has a Chapter 93 warm water fishery. The back basin, area 2 back here, I would best describe as kind of a football field looking basin. It'd be great for, a pitch to play some soccer on. Turf grass was the primary cover there. 2 pilot channels from 2 separate inflow locations, and then the singular riser structure for overflows and hydraulic controls discharged into a channel that then tied into Kreitz Creek. The area 4 is the inflow coming into that basin, which was eroded and needed to be spruced up and stabilized. We also added an end wall, DW end wall, at that location because it was just a round pipe. One thing to note here, and I'll talk a little bit about the drainage area statistics later in the presentation here. This is a 40-acre, it might not look like it, I know there's no scale on this drawing, but this property where the prison is located is about 42 acres, 40 acres. There's a lot of impervious, a lot of rooftop area that is draining to these 2 basins. These are the 2 main stormwater management control facilities on the site of the prison. So I believe the front basin gets most of this western portion of the prison, as well as the front half of the building here. And then this back part, this newer dark colored rooftop area, as well as part of the middle central area of the prison, drains to this back basin. So quite a bit of impervious. This large parking lot also comes to the back basin through this inflow point. So cool thing about the project, we were able to capture a majority of the impervious surface on the prison and able to retrofit that and create water quality improvements for both of those basins with these retrofits. So good bang for the buck. For the project approach then, really it was to do no harm. We wanted to enhance the basin storage volumes, but we really didn't want to affect the hydraulics of the system. To keep things moving from a permitting perspective, as well as to control costs on the project, we really looked at the existing hydraulics of the facilities, looked at the riser and the overflow structures, and determined that they were still functioning as intended. So really the main goal from an excavation perspective was to really enhance and create more areas for excavation and for shallow infiltration, and not really incorporate any fill or take away from existing storage volume within these basins. We also wanted to maximize surface infiltration. So you'll see on the next slide, our design approach for at least area 1 and area 2 was to create some micro topography with shallow ponding areas. What we called were basically small rain garden areas within the overall larger detention facility, to create that retention time and additional travel time through the facility from inflow to outflow. Another key factor on the project was to install low height vegetation. We now know that if you don't maintain a stormwater basin, that low height vegetation can get to be pretty tall, but we did take into consideration the height of the proposed plantings and went with an upland meadow seed mix, and as well as a lowland rain garden seed mix in the depressional areas, to try to manage that. The big issue was safety at the prison campus, trying to make sure that there was good sight lines and no areas where mischief or anything like contraband could be stashed, which was a concern of the officials at the prison. We also looked to stabilize the inflow points. Currently in these basins, there were no forebays. There was no way to capture any floatables or other debris that was coming into the basins. So we installed forebays, which you'll see in later slides and in the construction photos at each of the inflow points. Lindsay, jump in here at any point if you want.
You're doing great.
All right, so area number 1, which is the north basin, the front basin along Concord Road, was that long triangular basin, like I said. Really the approach was here to put inflow forebays with rock windows to flow through those to filter any floatables, like I said, into the downstream conveyance areas. So this was actually a mildly sloping channel that came down to the basin bottom, which was down in this area. Looking at this, we enhanced this area and created some shallow ponding as well as longer float path by incorporating these micro berms. And you'll see this photo here of this micro berm with a flow through weir to control any erosion that might occur in the center of that berm during really intense storm events. So we created 2 ponding areas, micro forebay, shallow ponding rain garden areas, as well as these other depressional areas down towards the outlet structure. This was also a depressional rain garden for any flows that came in through this grassline channel that comes from the east side of the campus. So really, like I said, mostly excavation. We increased the storage capacity of the basin, minor filling, but accompanied by minor excavation, and really a net increase in storage volume to, like I said, do no harm to the hydraulics of the system. This photo in the bottom right here is one of our pocket rain gardens shortly after construction. It's a little hard to tell in the photo, but there's a depressional area right here. This old watchtower is actually, I believe, this one on the plan. So this would be an image standing at Concord Road looking across the basin towards the prison. So you're looking at this rain garden feature number 1-3. The back basin had a similar approach. This forebay right here ended up being a fairly large forebay area, and that was due to the size of the drainage area. There's a lot of impervious area that drains back to this back corner. There's an outfall here to the channel, and then another roof drain outfall that comes in. I believe this back basin has a drainage area of about 20 acres, and almost half of that is impervious. So 10 acres of impervious with a travel time of, probably a minute or two from the time the water falls on the roof till it gets down into here. So very, very flashy peak flows coming out of these inflows into this area. So this forebay here sees a lot of flow. One thing we actually did during construction, we had a rain event. We had a lot of rain events during construction, and I'll get to that in a little bit. But
We sure did.
We had one rock window as you can see on the plan here, proposed. The flows and the peak flows we had during construction actually started to erode another one on this side. So instead of trying to force all the water to go this way, to keep the water going in the path of least resistance, we added a second forebay window on this side. So now this forebay is functioning with two flow through windows to increase the capacity of those really flashy peak events that come in here. So you can see we have two larger rain garden micro pool areas set up. We also have another inflow with a forebay here, and then the water eventually makes its way down to the outfall rain garden. So you can see during construction, this was after a pretty intense rainfall event. So you can see the ponding that's occurring with the riser structure just off the photo on the right side here. So it really is functioning as intended. We're seeing a lot more residence time. There's a lot of water quality improvements and infiltration that were occurring that really, for the smaller storm events, most of the time the water would just come in and go out through the pilot channels and really not have any residence time or water quality treatment as part of the stormwater management. For project coordination, it wasn't a huge project, but there was a lot of coordination that needed to occur. Lindsay had already mentioned the project sponsor team of prison officials, county staff, the Planning Commission, and JMT. Because of the size of the earth disturbance, the amount of acreage, I believe we were over 2 acres of disturbance. We worked with the York County Conservation District to get an MPDS authorization. Fun fact, there was actually an MPDS permit open on the prison campus, which we weren't aware of until we went with our pre-app meeting and talked to the Conservation District. So we ended up doing a permit amendment to that MPDS authorization and tucked this project in under that previous permit that was still active on the campus. From a municipal perspective, we worked with Spring-Sperry Township to gain stormwater management review and approval. So we worked through that process. And then with the PADP, as part of the grant funding requirements, worked with them on a post-construction walkthrough of the site. Some other notable coordination, which I thought was something that was really unique and interesting to me. There's a very large natural gas line that runs out here along Concord Road, just adjacent to this swale. I believe they're 20 to 30 inch force mains, a couple of them. But when I put the PA1 call in that we were going to be out here doing this work, my phone was ringing off the hook. I think I got like 3 different calls from folks at Columbia Gas wanting to know what we were doing and that once they came out, understood what the project was going to be, what we were planning to do from a construction and an earth excavation perspective. They were fine with it, but they did request to have somebody on site during construction at all times, just because of the sensitive nature of that really large gas line. During construction, we had a lot of coordination as well. We had pre-bid meeting with the contractors that were interested in the job. We did weekly inspections. The Planning Commission really helped out with prevailing wage interviews because this was the Davis-Bacon wages came into play here. So we had interviews on site, and I know Lindsay was part of that. And then we also did
That was a new experience for me.
Yeah. And then the final walkthrough, obviously during construction, to make sure we had everything tied up before the contractor was released. And then during post-construction, we've actually done an annual inspection. We've done a few monitoring events and an annual inspection as well at the site. So certainly once you put these projects in the ground, you really have to keep an eye on them and make sure that you're monitoring and keeping tabs on them through an annual inspection protocol, which the county has done. So in summary, not a huge project, but definitely a lot of moving parts and pieces to keep track of. A few project challenges that I wanted to go through here, just to give you some more perspective on the site. I talked a little bit about site access and security. Being on the site of a county prison certainly has its adds unique challenges to the project. So we talked about the vegetation and even just getting on site, making sure that everything was coordinated ahead of time, and that there weren't any surprises for the folks at the prison and the facilities folks over there. Wildlife, there's a large Canada geese population at this site. So actually our retrofits have been helping with that. The geese don't like the vegetative, non-manicured vegetation areas. So the actual basin proper areas have kind of helped with that. We haven't had the goose issues that we had prior to construction, although they're still nearby in the other areas of the campus. There was some rock excavation in area 2. You can see this photo here with a large boulder that was encountered. There was many more of those, but that was something that we weren't expecting, but the contractor was able to make it work and work around and incorporate and remove those as necessary. Dewatering. So this project was constructed in the fall of 2018. And if you all remember, the fall of 2018 was a pretty rainy time here in South Central Pennsylvania. I checked back on the rain gauges because my memory had gotten a little foggy of how much rain we actually had. So I actually checked out the Springettsbury Township rain gauge that they have pretty close by the project site. And there was actually over 20 inches of rain that fall in September, October, and November, which was exactly when these basin retrofits were being constructed. So I think October, November had 13 inches alone. And so you can see in this photo here during construction, we had some pretty major rain events. You can see ponding in that rain garden area a day or two after, but you can also see, we lost a little bit of temporary stabilization here, but really the basin bottom did hold up and functioned pretty well, even though we had all that rain during that construction season.
And it also kind of helped us figure out the natural flow of the water through the basins. So while it may have been a pain at first, it did kind of help a little bit with maybe changing up the design a bit, right?
Sure, absolutely. Yep. Seed mix. So, seed mixes, they want to float whenever it rains and they, come into a basin. So, the contractor was up against that and had to reseed because they lost some of their seed mix. We also had some issues with establishment. I know there was a rogue worker that might have jumped into a lawnmower and mowed the basin bottom in area 1 before they were supposed to. So you can see this photo in the bottom right here with a bunch of tire tracks in the bottom of the basin that had just been established and was just starting to germinate after the springtime. So in summary, we had two basins that were retrofit for the project. There were 9 pocket rain garden areas, low depressional areas that were installed. We also installed 3 forebays, 2 in the back basin, 1 in the front basin. The 2 inflow and outfall channels for the facilities were stabilized as well. And for MS4 TMDL credits, which were applied to the York County joint PRP that Lindsay had talked about earlier, we had over 10,000 pounds per year of TSS, and then some nitrogen and phosphorus that also could be applied. Here's the statistics for the two drainage areas. Like I said, almost 20 acres to area 2, 10 acres to area 1. Highly impervious, almost 50%, and quite a bit of infiltration volume were treated at both these facilities. So these are just a few construction photos that I'll flip through as we wrap things up. Here's some rock excavation happening in the back basin, the installation of the new end wall where the roof drain came off the building, and there was just a pipe end, a straight pipe previously. This is also the back basin construction activities in the rain garden. You can see the ENS controls here that we worked with the conservation district to develop something that would work to keep the sediment from going out the low flow orifice in the riser structure. And then 4-bay construction at the front basin. So just a few more action shots, I guess, from erosion sediment control installs. One thing I didn't mention was the contractor on the project, Ecotone, incorporated out of, I believe they're down in Falston, Maryland. They did a really great job. We're really great to work with. So appreciate everything they did on the project as well. That's it.
Okay, thank you very much. We got about 8 minutes for questions before we go to our next session. So again, if you have a question, feel free to put that in the chat, or I think at this point, if you want to just come off mute and ask it directly, I think that would be fine as well. Any questions for Lindsay and Andrew? Okay, I'll ask a question. So for construction, what was the biggest challenge? I know you said the contractor there, Ecotone, was really good, but when you were putting this out to bid, did you put anything in the bid that said must have a certain amount of experience, or did you have to do any education with Ecotone before they started for them to understand the project and the intent of the BMPs they were constructing, or did you find they were already pretty knowledgeable?
Lindsay, you want to go first?
I would say that they were pretty knowledgeable. They understood it. The only kind of quirky thing that we had to say was that we needed to have the vegetation needed to be low vegetation. Like Berm said, we didn't, the prison had concerns with could prisoners hide in it or could contraband be hidden in it. So that had to be low. Probably the thing that we had to do some education with, which the prisoners are the ones who mow the basin, so they just kind of hopped on a mower one time and mowed it all down, like Berm had said. So just didn't quite get that education to them soon enough. And we had some also like turnover there. I mean, they don't stay there forever. So the ones who did know about it had gone and new ones were there to maintain it. So.
Yeah, Jason, great question. And what Lindsay said, I echo that. But also, I guess we did, we developed a list of contractors that we wanted to make sure that they were aware of this opportunity. So Ecotone was on that list. I had actually, my company had worked with them previously on ecological restoration projects in Maryland and elsewhere. So I already had a familiarity with them when they submitted on it and became were the low bidder on the contract. So it kind of worked out. They had a reputation. I believe they were already doing some work in South Central PA, possibly in Jackson Township. They might have done some work over there. So I think they were familiar with the area and working in the area. And then just, coordinating with them, really meeting on site, making sure that if any issues came up, they would notify us immediately during construction, and we would meet on site, talk it through, figure out what the best approach was to mitigate anything. A lot of that really just had to do with all the rainfall that was occurring, and then some of those project challenges with rock construction. But now they're a really good contractor. They did a good job. They're used to kind of working in wet areas and doing more ecological friendly type project installs. So.
Okay, great. Question in the chat: who's responsible for long-term maintenance, weeding, cutting back plants, etc.?
Yeah, so the prison, the county maintenance facility staff are, because it's a county prison. So I think they coordinate with the facilities management team at the prison campus to perform that.
Okay. Excellent question. Are there any more? So feel free to take yourselves off mute and ask directly if you have a question for Lindsay or Andrew.
I would say with any project that you're looking at doing, just kind of be prepared for the unknown. There were lots of little things that just kind of popped up doing this project, and we're like, oh, okay, let's figure this issue out. So that was kind of fun. Like Berm had said, with the large rocks that we found in the basin, to there was a development up the road that was going in, and they were possibly talking about relocating the prison entrance, going right through one of the basins we were going to retrofit. So that was kind of like a uh-oh. And all the rain. But it was, and the existing NPDS permit that was there that we just had to modify slightly. So lots of different things that pop up, but in all, it was worth it, and it looks good, and we have some reductions, so that's good.
Okay. All right. Well, we have a couple minutes left. Were there any other specific challenges that you faced that you want to share with the group, or any other tips for a successful project? No, communication is always a challenge. It sounds like you had a lot. So I know you mentioned communicating. When did you start that process of reaching out to all the different, I guess, stakeholders, utility companies? I think particularly the prison. When did all of that? What was the general timeline for that coordination?
So when the county was, when we found out that we had an MS4 permit, that's kind of when we started our committee of the YCPC, county employees, and also prison staff as well, because the prison had large basins on it. And then we applied for the grant, and then we found JMT, which that was it was great working with JMT. Probably the easiest engineering firm that we've worked with, and so the communication there was top notch, and really trying to problem solve some things. So yeah, it was kind of like each year, and then working with JMT, they had some working knowledge with the firm that with Ecotune, who actually did the work.
So how long do you think?
Typing.
Yes, there's a question coming in. But how long was it, you think, from the time you reached out to the prison to the point that all the retrofits and construction was complete?
Well, we had been working with the prison for probably 2-3 years prior to coming up with the project. So they have always been involved in it.
Okay.
Our MS4 permit.
Okay, but it sounds like it was a multi-year process, at least 2 or 3 years from conception of the idea, reaching out, starting to collaborate, to actual construction with projects in the ground?
So that's a great question. Public education, looks like Karen, did you see that, Jason?
I do.
Any
Yep.
opportunities for public education limited because of prison security? I can go first, Lindsay, and then you can
Yeah, go
chime
ahead.
in as well. But great question. We actually did take a field trip there with the York College civil engineering students. What was that, 2 summers ago, Lindsay? It was
I
definitely
believe pre-COVID.
yeah, definitely pre-COVID. So that was really fun. So we all loaded in some vans from York College. York College has recently started a civil engineering program. So one of the professors there reached out, who teaches a water resources class. So we went to a few sites in the county that we did stormwater implementation on, and the prison was one of those sites. So there was some education involved there. I would say access isn't, it's not like a supermax prison, but you just have to, be on their radar and don't show up wearing an orange jumpsuit or something like that when you go visit. So Lindsay, I don't know if you want to comment on anything the county's doing for outreach.
Yeah, it's just pretty much the same thing. There are educational opportunities, but it has to be highly coordinated with the prison. But we would like to get a sign out there at the front swale. Not sure if that will happen or not, but that was something that we had discussed at one point.
Okay, well, I think that's the time for this session. Thank you again, Lindsay and Andrew, for a great presentation. So again, I know you've all figured it out now, but it's best to leave this session and go back to the agenda, and we're going into the tips for preparing for a DEP inspection. So I know we all want to catch that one. So we'll see you all over there.
All right. Thank you. Yep.
Great, thank
Take
you.
care. Bye-bye.
Bye.